My name is Anne. I'm the Advisory Specialist in Adult Services at EPL. And welcome all of you, our local author panelists, as well as our audience out there. And we are focusing on books for kids and parents in this session of our virtual local author fair. So this is the first year we're doing this virtually. Last year, we were unfortunately not able to have our local author fair, which we've had in the past in person at the library, which has been a wonderful event. So welcome everybody. You're able to join from the comfort of your home, and panelists from yours as well. So, and just a note, this program is being recorded and it's being presented in webinar format. So anybody who's in the audience cannot be seen or heard. So don't worry about that. If anybody in the audience would like to share any comments during the session, you can type them into the chat. And if you have any questions, you can type them into the Q&A at any time. And you can type comments or questions at any time. And all right, so we're waiting for one more author, but in the meantime, we will get started with our first author. To introduce, we have Dr. Mimi Black. And Dr. Mimi Black wears many hats as a psychologist, author, actress, and mom. She has published articles on several developmental psychology topics and is co-author on a brand new children's book with Free Spirit Publishing. Mimi has worked on both sides of the camera in the development of children's educational television programs. And welcome, Dr. Mimi Black.
Well, Anne, thank you very much. And thank you to everyone in the audience for coming today. And as my friends at the library know, I totally heart our library. I am so grateful for the opportunities that they have provided for me to learn. And I'm sure everyone in the audience feels the same way. I don't want to talk in particular about the book that has just been published, because if you are interested in that book in particular, there is on the evening of November 30th, I believe that's a Tuesday, I will be presenting for parents and anyone in the audience who might like to come to hear a little bit more about ways in which you can help your young child cope with teasing and how to help prevent bullying in your child's environment. And that will be in conjunction with our amazing library's social worker, Tracy Orrick. So we can get a chance to talk more in particular about the book then. I can just show you, this is the book, I think you guys can see that, it's Ease the Tease, and it's a children's picture book. And I interestingly bridged the gap for the topic of this webinar because I was very interested in a parenting book that I found on our shelves in the library back when our son was about to enter kindergarten. And the name of the book was Easing the Teasing. And it was a phenomenal book, a parenting and educator book that taught me how to teach my then very young son, not one or two, but 10 strategies for helping him avoid being a repeated target of teasing. And it's a long story, but I approached the author and we worked together on a children's version of her strategies. And that's how Ease the Tease came about. But I think that folks in our audience would probably be more interested in hearing some more general things for getting maybe their idea of a book for parents or children into publication. And I think one of the first things I learned in this process is there is no one process. Everyone I talk to has their own amazing path. And I think that it is, in a way, both maddening and beautiful, because creativity itself has absolutely no one path. So I have 3 suggestions for folks as they're thinking about bringing their magnificent creative idea onto the printed page. The first one is, and thank you, library, our first one is research. Find out what publishers are publishing books that are very much like your idea. Finding a home for your book is very difficult and very important. So we have incredible resources in our children's library. There's the Children's Book Market, which is a yearly updated reference. Find out what publishers are looking for, find out what their parameters are. They will say all kinds of very helpful things that will help you avoid spending months waiting to hear back from them if a book that you are proposing is not at all something they publish. For one example, Free Spirit, who has published our book, never publishes stories about animals. It is a publisher that speaks directly, their books speak directly to the reader, and they use human, real examples, not, Benny the Bunny learns about teasing. They don't do topics like that. My second suggestion to you is to crowdsource. There are so many online resources out there from fellow authors who can maybe give you some great pointers that can save you months and months and months of research. One that I found particularly helpful, it is one that you need to pay for each year. It's the Authors Guild, but they have chat rooms galore. And that was that was the resource I used to find a great attorney for going over my colleague in my book contract. But every single day there are new questions brought out to the chat and people answering questions. So folks also talk a lot about the Society for Children's Book Writers. That's another one to use for crowdsourcing. And lastly, my third is the letter P, which is patience. That was a huge surprise for me. My colleague and I wrote our manuscript in 2009. Let's just let that sit there for a little while. 2009. And our book was very specialized, so we knew there were only 2 or 3 publishers that would be interested in our book. It took a lot of patience. It took a lot of sometimes serendipitous things that would happen. For example, the Free Spirit publisher, they were more interested in looking at our manuscript when they changed chief editors. So be persistent. So those are RCP. You can think of them as recipe if you like, but research, crowdsource, and patience are my 3 pieces of advice to our general audience.
Hey, thank you, Dr. Mimi Black. Wonderful. All right, and our next author we have, we will go to Diana Murray. So Diana is the author of New Mom Essentials, a field guide to being your own health advocate throughout pregnancy and the 4th trimester. Diana Murray is a mom, executive coach, and healthcare industry veteran who helps leaders define and pursue what matters most. She is also a pre- and postnatal yoga instructor and certified in plant-based nutrition. Prior to writing this book, Diana ran a digital health company to improve maternal health outcomes and saw firsthand the power of equipping women with the knowledge and tools they need to navigate the physical, mental, and emotional transition to motherhood. She lives in Elmhurst with her husband and daughter, and her book, New Mom Essentials, will be available via Amazon on Labor Day, September 6th of this year. And welcome, Diana Murray.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everybody. I'm super excited to be here. And like Dr. Black, I love the library. I've always loved it growing up and miss going to the Elmhurst Library, given that I'm a couple blocks away. So I appreciate Anne and the rest of the team coordinating this event. So I have a pretty interesting path to writing this book. I've never actually set out with the intention of being an author. 6 years ago, one of my good friends gave birth to her first baby. And I remember hearing all about what it was like to be a new mom. And I remember also thinking at the time, you know, people keep talking about needing a village to raise a child, but where is that village? I think from a healthcare perspective, while maternal mortality is declining worldwide, there's actually been an increase in the United States since the year 2000. From a social perspective, it's rare that nowadays that for us to even live close to our best, friends and family. Culturally, there's also more of a focus on the baby rather than the mom here in the US. And then from a benefits or parental leave perspective, women in the US are expected to go back to work often within weeks of giving birth. So when I was in grad school back in 2017, I set out with the research question of how do we actually help women achieve optimal health during and after pregnancy? And since then, I've interviewed so many people, more than 400 doctors, nurses, midwives, doulas, perinatal specialists, therapists, educators, insurance experts, HR benefits managers, new parents, and their family and friends. And over the last few years, as more and more of my friends became pregnant, and as I got pregnant, I kept getting messages from people asking me, are there any insights from your research that you could share? And so I began pouring through my interview notes to synthesize all that I had learned. And so what started as a 50-slide PowerPoint deck, thanks to my friends who had the patience to go through that, has now evolved into a 176-page field guide and a handbook. And what's unique about this book is that it covers every aspect that would affect a mom's health from a mental, emotional, and physical perspective. So I envision a mom being able to take this along with her to the doctor's office, write notes in the margins, cross items off the checklist as they see fit. To give you a sense, there's 50 bite-sized chapters organized into 2 sections. There's a prenatal and a postnatal section. And then within each section, there's 3 parts: self-care, crucial conversations, and a checklist. So my goal is to get this into the hands of as many new moms to be as possible, to help them be the best possible advocates for themselves as they navigate the healthcare system, select their provider team, make decisions about how they would like to give birth, set boundaries to protect themselves, learn how to take advantage of their insurance benefits, and negotiate their optimal return to work scenario. There's even a few chapters in there for partners and loved ones on how they can help. So I thought I would take a minute and kind of read a short excerpt from the book introduction. So this page is titled, "What is a Good Outcome?" When you ask most people this question, what is a good outcome? 9 times out of 10, you'll hear the response, a healthy mom and a healthy baby. What more could you ask for, right? But if you're a reader of this book, then chances are you are not most people. You might be wondering, how are healthy mom and healthy baby defined? By whom? Why are they defined that way? Is there anything I can do to increase my chances of having a good outcome both now and in the future? Plenty of books exist out there that discuss parenting and pediatric health. And there are many who are much more qualified than I am who have published their theories on what drives poor maternal health outcomes, such as postpartum depression and maternal mortality. Even the classification of what is considered a good versus poor health outcome can be hotly contested. One example during labor and delivery is the use of more invasive procedures, which, if deemed medically necessary, can be life-saving, but also come with risks that have the potential to pose future health concerns for the mother. What's more is that what's clinically measured by healthcare institutions and insurance companies isn't all that matters. We are whole people. So when I say health, I mean your whole health, every aspect of it, physical, mental, and emotional, both during this season and for the rest of your life. The purpose of this book is not to judge how a mom chooses to give birth or what constitutes medical necessity. Rather, it's to give you a heads up about many of the choices you may not have even known you had. Not only that, but I also want to help you be alert to the kinds of things you can do before baby is born to set yourself up for whole health during pregnancy and long afterward, no matter your circumstances. So that's the end of the excerpt. I genuinely believe that we all win when we take care of the moms who are always taking care of everyone else. And I hope that you join me in helping other moms achieve whole health. And I look forward to continuing the dialogue during the Q&A.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Diana. All right, and our next author is Connie Nestler, the author of Sasha and Patches. And the subtitle is The Life and Adventures of Two Rescue Cats. All Connie is a former teacher of children with disabilities and a principal at early childhood and elementary schools in Schaumburg School District 54. After leaving education, Connie has volunteered as a mentor in Elmhurst School District 205 and currently works with young adults with cognitive disabilities in Next Chapter Book Club at Elmhurst Public Library. She enjoys writing stories, reading, painting, making pottery, quilting, gardening, and spending time in nature. Sasha and Patches, The Life and Adventures of Two Rescued Cats with Minds of Their Own, is her first children's book, and she is currently working on 3 other books. Welcome, Connie Nestler.
Thank you. I'm going to hold up the cover. Can everybody see it? Good. I won't repeat it. Sometimes it's hard to say. It was one of those titles that was hard to decide what to use as a title. And then one day when it came, I knew that was the one that I wanted. So I stuck with it. And my editor liked it. It's a collection of short stories, and there are 66 in all. Originally, my publisher, I self-published the book, and my publisher wanted to divide it. The desire to invest that much at one time in books, so I convinced her to do the one book. So you really get your money's worth with this book. The stories are told by the 2 cats. They take turns, and their personalities really show up and influence the outcome and the happenings in the stories. I'm going to show you a picture of the real Sasha and Patches. Sasha is the white cat, and Patches is the dark cat. Sasha is very shy, and she hasn't found her voice yet. And when I say that, I literally mean she opens her mouth, and most of the time, nothing comes out. There's a story about that. Sasha loves to play in boxes. We have boxes all over the house. And when the Chewy.com delivery comes, she's having a good day. She also likes the crinkly paper inside. And unfortunately, she likes to drink out of mom's glass when I'm not watching. Patches, on the other hand, is an extrovert. She's never met a lap she couldn't get comfortable in, or a stranger that she wouldn't come right up to and try to engage. She is a soccer player. She loves balls. And she also can bring a ball to me wherever I'm at in the house, just because, just a little gift, she puts it right in front of me. I failed to mention that Sasha also is afraid of thunder. And so we always have to have rooms available with a bed in them for on stormy nights. There's a story about that. There's humor throughout my stories. That was important to me. I think kids, you know, if they're going to enjoy something, they're going to need to laugh along with it as well. And my husband was kind of my laugh-o-meter. He doesn't laugh at all my jokes. So I thought that would be a good person to see the stories and to get some feedback. So when I heard him chuckle or laugh about, you know, when he was reading them in his study, I thought, okay, I'm doing okay. I also, as a teacher, former teacher, I wanted to include something really purposeful and helpful for children and their parents and teachers. So I've included during many of the stories with life lessons that the kiddies go through and experience in the story. To give you a few examples of those life stories, there's a story about jealousy. Patches is the jealous one. Sharing, making mistakes, feeling different, looking different, not feeling like you fit in, to name a few. those types of experiences, that all children at some point go through at least a few of those problems. So I see my book as a resource, not only for fun reading, but maybe a starting point for the parent or for the teachers in the classroom to discuss some of these feelings that the cats are having, or the experiences they're going through that may coincide with things that are happening at the home or in the school. I think it's easy for children to recognize feelings when somebody else is having those feelings or experiencing those problems. So I hope for them it makes it easier to talk about those issues. I wanted to show you a few illustrations. I did a variety of illustrations. Some of the illustrations were just pure black and white line drawings. And then I have many, let's see if I can get this positioned. I have many these full page colored illustrations. You can see the cats at the bottom. This is one of the holiday stories. There are 3 in this particular book. One for Thanksgiving and Halloween. I love the one for Halloween. And the one at Christmas time. I thought that would be fun. Teachers like to have some special stories at that time of year too. And then the final way that I've had some illustrations made was to focus on one colored portion of that drawing. And that usually points out something important in the story and will help the child understand better, maybe remember some of it better because of that focus point that one color illustration provides. As I said, there's 66 stories in all. They're short and great for nap time or bedtime or story time at school. You already mentioned this, but I am writing 3 books right now, and they all came to me at once. So I thought, well, there they are. That's kind of how my stories happen. I see the kiddies do something, and I think that could be a story. And so I would sit down and start on that. But I'm going to write a sequel to this story. I'm also writing a book for Patches on a Book of Dreams. I think it's important for kids to dream and to talk about it and to expand their imaginations through dreams. And I also, I have an idea for what I want to do for the last story, even though I haven't written it yet. And that is, I want to encourage them to big dreams, to have big dreams. Little dreams are nice, they're good too, but I think sometimes we sell ourselves short and we need to really go out there and big dream. The third book that I'm writing is for Sasha, and her book is on gratitude and simple pleasures. Again, I think teaching children gratitude, how to be grateful for things that they have, and to enjoy the simple things, simple pleasures that happen to all of us every day that we overlook or don't really pay attention to. I think the pandemic has taught us that, if anything, that we need to pay attention to the small pleasures in life. That was probably the greatest gift my mother gave to me. She always pointed out and made me appreciate the simple things in life. Thank you.
Thank you, Connie. Wonderful. And yeah, thank you to all of you authors. Now, so let's see if we have any questions. Do not have any comments that have been entered, and we don't have any questions yet. Members of the audience, feel free to type any questions into the Q&A you might see down at the bottom, or maybe towards the top, depending on what type of device you're using. You could just click right where it says Q&A, and you will be able to type a question and then I will see it and then I can ask that question of our local author panelists. So, but I do have a question in the meantime while we're waiting to see if we have any questions from the audience. So Connie, so you worked with an illustrator. So what was that like? And then what came first? So I imagine you were writing the stories and then you reached out to an illustrator, or what was that process like?
I went through a publisher that actually I met at the Elmhurst Public Library in a presentation, I think it was 2018. And her name is Jackie Ruiz. So she provides, as part of the self-publishing process, she provides the editor, the proofreader. She would have introduced me to more than one illustrator if I needed one, but I liked the one that she introduced to me first. So that was actually the best part of the process for me, was the illustrations. It was a very collaborative relationship, and I felt free to, tweak and say no, or I change things that she offered. Her name was Karen Light, and she's very talented.
Right, great. And how about for our other panelists? So as far as working with an illustrator and other collaborators, co-author, do you want to speak to that at all?
I can jump in. My co-author and I were very excited because we had a very firm idea of what we wanted for illustrations. And we were aware that when you are working with a publisher, oftentimes their right is to take your text, run with it, and the next time you see it is when it's actually published. You don't have any say over the illustrator, you don't have any say on the illustrations. And big shout out to Free Spirit Publishing. They worked with my colleague Judy Friedman and I all the way. And the first illustrator that they suggested from their pool of illustrators was a pretty good match for what Judy and I had in mind. And we were able to work with our editor and with the illustrator. We gave suggestions of what we thought might be superb for a particular concept or a page. And the editor that we were assigned was very like-minded with us. So it was great fun to watch things come together. Every now and then we had to change a particular approach or a particular thought. And I think there was only one time in which we politely argued, but we were fortunate in that there are so many tools now that folks can collaborate online, see each other's comments, talk together. It was very exciting when we saw the first sketches come through because so many of them were just like what we had hoped. So we were grateful, although we did not choose our illustrator, we were delighted that both he and our editors seemed to get our humor.
Wonderful, thanks.
Definitely talk about my path. It was very different, I would say, just simply because I never actually set out to write a book. I was planning on maybe doing some sort of a PDF of my PowerPoint was my original and turn it into an ebook. I actually spoke with one of my former grad school professors who has published through Random House and got kind of the full, from end to end, how many years. And Dr. Black, like he would probably tell you, same. It took him so many rounds of editing and so many changes throughout that process. And he actually convinced me to go on and do this on my own. So I actually talked to quite a few people that I found online, and I found an editor who has previously worked for one of the large publishing houses and has since been retired, and she worked in the parenting category, and she has been invaluable to me throughout this process and kind of helping me work through and turn this into an actual book, a paperback, that I can hold in my hands, which is crazy. But I would say timeline wise, definitely from when I decided to make it into a book until when I published Labor Day, I would say about 1.5 years, which is much shorter for kind of self-publishing, I would say.
Great. All right. Thanks. Let's see other questions that we have here. Okay. So I do have, there's one question came in. How does Connie have so much time to write down all these ideas?
I carry books around with me, little, writing tablets and things. And when the ideas come, I just start writing, at least jot down notes, because you think you'll remember them and you don't. So I really take advantage because I see them as little gifts that come into my head.
Thanks. All right, and then one question came in. What was the title of Diana Murray's book? And then Diana, do you want to say your title again, please, for the audience?
Sure, it is New Mom Essentials, a field guide to being your own health advocate throughout pregnancy and the 4th trimester. And it will be available on Labor Day.
Thank you. All right, and another question came in. Does anybody have advice for other writers? I know some of you did speak to that in your presentations. Any other advice for writers from any of the panelists?
I think you do have to be careful in selecting and looking for your publishers. I think I was fortunate with Fig Factor Media. But it wasn't without, some frustrations that went along with it. But I think for the most part, they helped me accomplish what I had set out to do. And I met, what ended up strange for me was how much work I had to do after I handed them the manuscript. Whereas I hear Mimi saying different, that's really different when you have a publisher you're not self-publishing. But so I'm looking forward to getting a publisher I don't have to have so much control over.
I do also want to speak. This is another thing that I found fascinating, partly because of COVID, partly because of massive seismic changes in the publishing industry. Whether you are self-published or you are published through a publisher, the landscape has changed for marketing your book. A lot of people, even with their first book, they might think, oh, this is great. I'm working with a publisher. They'll send me on a multi-city book tour, and this will be very exciting, and I'll be signing things, and I'm a celebrity. Unless you're Stephen King or J.K. Rowling or a very noted celebrity, you are most of the time doing a lot of the legwork for marketing your book. And that can be everything from looking at the calendar and seeing, well, what is coming up? I'll just give one example from Judy in my book. October is Bullying Prevention Month. Well, that's an opportunity to reach out to reporters, and it's an opportunity to reach out to networks and see if they would like to interview a talking head. Other kinds of self-marketing one has to do nowadays is pound the pavement with indie bookstores as well as your local Barnes and Noble. There isn't one pipeline anymore. Folks who self-publish now have opportunities that they didn't have before. There are bookshops that specialize in marketing self-published books. So it pays to do your homework, and thank heavens for our Magic Library, because it's a great place to start and find out, where would your book fit in and what will you have to do both before the book is published and after.
Yeah, and actually I can offer that if anyone is seriously thinking about it after hearing our stories and willing to have the patience to go through all of this, I'm happy to chat with you. Just if you want to talk about it, you could contact me through my website or get it through the library staff.
Great, thank you. Okay, and let's see, here's another question from the audience. Connie, your readers are wanting to know when the 3 new books will be out.
Well, they're not finished yet. I would say some of them are about halfway completed, and I've just begun to start looking for publishing. And Mimi, thank you for that one tip that you just gave me. So I have no idea. I have no idea, really. I know how long it takes to self-publish, and now I'm learning more about how long it takes for the regular publishers to do it. So I would say I'm probably a couple of years down the road yet.
Okay.
I may throw a few out just somehow, you know, in another type of publication just to get people excited about the stories again.
Great, thanks. All right, and do any of you have favorite places that you like to write? Or do you have an ideal place? What, in your perfect world, where would your writing spot be?
I usually like to do it in my bedroom where I'm cozy. And like I said, I always have books. Like right now I have 3 little books that I pick up for each of the stories I'm working on. So I like to be cozy and comfortable in a bed or something.
I had trouble coming up with just dreaming about that place because I have an 11-month-old. So 4 a.m. when I wake up, when I can't fall asleep is when wherever I am, it just happens that way, wherever I can find the space and time and quiet.
And do any of you have a writing schedule, or is it like Diana, whenever you can squeeze it in?
I try to write.
Yep, sorry. I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Mimi.
I was just going to say, I don't really have a schedule. For me, it's the drive to get the message out is usually what powers me. So that doesn't seem to come on any kind of a regular schedule. It's when I know that something might be helpful to kids, and that's what powers me along.
I was just going to say that it depends on if I have some material for a story, you know, started, like the kernel of the idea or a subject matter or something like that, I would write. And then I would try to write a little bit each day. And sometimes it's just a very few minutes. Sometimes it's just rereading a story from the day before and to see what I want to take out or put in. So yeah, it varies for me as well.
I do have to say, when I was younger, I definitely discovered the Julia Cameron book at the library. And the concept of morning pages that she talks about is kind of famous now among the writing community. But for those, especially younger folks that are kind of learning about writing and want to become a writer, that's definitely a great thing to try, to just develop that habit of getting a couple pages out of whatever's on your mind first thing in the morning.
All right, thanks.
If you are not,
I'm sorry, go ahead, Mimi.
So sorry, Anne. If you are not very dead set on a particular topic or a particular audience, you just know that you are itching to write a book for kids. The resource I found somewhat recently that I'd love to share is gosh, I hope I get this right. I think it's Harper's Weekly. I'm not sure. They do a quarterly sneak peek of what Publishers Weekly. I can't believe I said Harper's Weekly. Publishers Weekly does a quarterly what's about to be published, what's about to be released. That is a terrific opportunity to see what are publishers buying nowadays. What are they sending out? So you can get an idea. Some publishers will say either on their website or in the Society for Children's Book Writers information, the children's book market, we are not seeking picture books nowadays, or we are not seeking LGBTQ issues. We are really interested in YA fiction, you know, young adult fiction. Pay careful attention to those because that will increase your odds that your book will get picked up.
All right, excellent. Thank you for that advice. Do any of you have any particular writing habits that you want to share? Like, I need to write I use this pen, or I'm always in this spot, or I need to be in the sun, or anything else, any certain quirky type of writing habits that you have that you might want to share?
Well, I tend to be the type of person, it's kind of like how I studied in college. I rewrite. I mean, manually rewrite. I don't actually go to the computer. I occasionally write at the computer for the beginning of a story, but very occasionally. But I'll just, you know, take a piece of paper or one of my little books and scratch out, just get the whole idea out there in handwriting. And then I just keep working that until I feel like it's pretty good that I can go on the computer.
All right, thanks for sharing that.
I think authors, traditional authors, will probably kind of raise their eyebrow at my process, so to speak, given that I'm have worked in, you know, the business of healthcare, and just as a business person, Excel and PowerPoint are my left and right hand. So everything went into PowerPoint. I would type things into PowerPoint. I would create charts to explain to myself and what the concept was. And then kind of after all of that was pretty much done and the whole book was pretty much done, then it was the process of how do I work with an editor to translate all of what's in PowerPoint to an actual book format. So that's probably not typical of what most people do.
But as we have said before, there is really no such thing as typical. I think it's kind of cool that there are so many different ways, but I think a fundamental one is know your audience and test drive your thoughts and your prose with those who would eventually be holding your book in their hands. I was very fortunate when the first manuscript of this came out. I was asked to come and speak to some local Girl Scout groups and Brownie Scout groups. And the children were my illustrators. I would read them a page or two and ask them to draw a picture to go along with them. And it was really fun to listen to our audiences and see where they laughed and where they had follow-on questions. And I think it really speaks to a way of honing your messages so that they have maximum impact.
Yes, I totally agree. I love the idea of having your target customer be the ones to kind of give you that feedback. I can't thank my friends enough for using the PowerPoint and asking me all the questions to help me really refine the content. So definitely agree.
That's great advice for that's wonderful for our audience members to hear all the different ways that you write and prepare to write for everyone who's curious about our local authors, and nice for any aspiring writers who are out there too, who are hoping to pick up some tips from you. Do you have any questions for each other panelists?
Connie, is that Sasha I see?
I'm sorry?
Is that Sasha I see?
Yeah, she's in one of her boxes. I didn't know you could see her. Yes, Sasha. She's asleep. That's one of her favorite hangouts.
I did have a question though for your kind of writing process and hearing you work on multiple things at the same time. I'm curious if you are writing parts of the different stories at the same time, often right after each other, or do you like to finish a draft and then kind of sit on it and then come back to it?
I do both. I would say most of the time, I have an idea, I get started on it right away and get out as much as I can. But then if I had another idea that came up, or if the kiddies did something really darling that I wanted to incorporate somehow, then I would, while it's fresh, I always try to do it while it's fresh. And then I also, in the mix of things, it sounds like it's kind of scatterbrained now that I think about it, but I'll also just write notes. Like I'll be watching TV and I'll think of things that I wanted to put in the story that I had the title of already. And then I'll just jot down as many of those ideas to include, like examples of what she's doing or something, or examples of things she was trying to solve a problem by doing. So does that answer your question? Okay. So it's kind of a mixture. I'm kind of a wild lady.
Well, I look forward to getting both your books. They sound awesome.
Amazon.com carries only the paperback for me, and I have copies for the hardback.
Wonderful. Well, thank you to all of our panelists, Mimi Black, Dr. Mimi Black, author of Ease the Tease, and Diana Murray, author of New Mom Essentials, a field guide to being your own health advocate throughout pregnancy and the 4th trimester, and Connie Nestler, author of Sasha and Patches, the life and adventures of 2 rescued cats with minds of their own. Thank you so much to all of us for sharing your writing experiences and information about your books. Much appreciated. I know our audience has appreciated it as well. Hope to see you all again.
Thank you, Ann.
Take care. Thank you so much.